to me, art in general is a social process. The idea that somehow art is done for art's sake is sort of ludicrous to me. I think that artists create because we know we're going to interact with other people in our community, whatever our community is. And that's a big motivator for me just as an artist, but it's also a motivator for me as a Latino, as someone who's engaged in this community, that when I create and when I'm doing what I do as a playwright, that I'm doing it with the idea in mind that somehow I'm connecting to the Latino community, I'm connecting to the general community for the purposes of advancing everyone involved, everyone engaged in the issue. So with regards to young people, particularly the students, for instance, that I spoke to the other day, that's critically important because they have to understand, first of all, that what they're doing matters. If they're working to improve their grades, if they're pursuing a degree, if they're thinking about their college career, they have to have a sense that that what they're going to do matters. Otherwise, why wake up in the morning? And by that, the idea of connecting with what matters in their life is important because we live in an age in which it's easy to be cynical. It's easy to sort of believe that our votes don't matter. It's easy to believe that whatever degree we get doesn't necessarily matter because of the state of our economy. So it's really critically important that people like Alberto Rios and myself, when we go to speak to students, we're essentially there and able to say to them that, you know what, it really does matter if you're engaged, whether you're a lawyer or you're an artist or a doctor or a construction worker, whatever it is you choose to do in life, that's important. And it's part of this overall process of keeping our community advancing and growing and frankly improving.
Poets came in and they told us what plays and poetries were about, and then each of us was given a chance to do a play and a poem. And in my case, we chose to do a play, because I thought that would be more funner and stuff. And in our play, we decided to basically explain simple truths in a way. I wanted to express that because what he showed us about poetry is that it was a lot of personal things we can put into it, a lot of feelings, a way to express ourselves, basically. And I found that way, and I found that through what we developed at first. At first we made a story, like there was 3 people in our group, and each of us showed an example of a struggle we've been through, and then we told each other how we learned from it and we grew from it and actually became a better person. And then we developed a story around that.
What is life?
Is it dreams that are reflected as imagery, unachievable actions that contemplate and change the thoughts of human beings? I come from divorced parents, and every night I have this dream where my parents' marriage never fell apart. And it always feels weird. And every morning I wake up to face the cold reality. An empty house left in pieces where the memories of happier times still linger in the air.
My parents are still together and remain in love. So how could I not believe in love? I have been betrayed and I have been lied to. But worst of all, I have been used. It only took one boy to destroy everything I believe in. Only one boy to lie his way into my heart and cut it into pieces, leaving scars for everyone to see.
Seeing my mother laying on a hospital bed made me cry in tears. Anger, but most of all, confusion. I was angry that my mom was hurt and that any moment after the incident, God will take her away from me at the very moment that I needed her the most. Death has no age limit whatsoever. I realize that life is full of obstacles. They are sent from God above. They help us become stronger. But it is up to me to stand my ground and fight.
I think it's important for students to be given a voice through plays and poetry because it helped us express our ideas, help us get those things out, it helped us, I got to know things about my peers that I didn't know and stuff. It's like I had a story inside of me I wanted to tell. It's like, something I really wanted to show people that this is something I've learned from, and I would like to share that to people so they can learn it as well, even if they haven't gone through it, so perhaps they can appreciate those things that maybe some people in our group have lost or don't have,
I think students should be able to, express themselves in any form of literature or poetry because it just gives them the opportunity to explain who they are and just to talk about like their feelings towards certain issues like that are going on today. And I think it's just a wonderful opportunity for everyone to share and just give up their ideas. Taking bites of cat-like ninjas and scaring away the vicious harpies, sitting on the power lines. She may be small, but when it comes to it, she always takes the biggest bite. Being a part of this project, I guess, it just made me realize the importance of poetry, and it just kind of brought alive like the whole sense of, I don't know, the powerful and like the reality of literature, and how sometimes people take for granted like those things that our teachers make us read.
We had to create a play that talked about our stories or someone we knew. And as a group, since we were all Hispanic, we decided to relate to the immigration topic. And then as the Senate bill passed last year, we decided to do a cop, like a racist cop, but we decided to do basically like a Chicano cop who didn't like being Chicano and was neglecting his own heritage. So it shows how it's not just between like Caucasian people and Mexicans or African Americans and Mexicans. It's also between Mexicans and Mexicans, basically. I played a waitress who did not speak English because was in a Mexican restaurant where most clients didn't speak English.
I need some ID.
No hablo inglés, no sé qué decirle y tengo mucho miedo. No sé qué van a hacer mis hijos si me deportan. Por favor, alguien ayúdeme. Disculpe, señor.
What?
No hablo inglés, señor.
What?
Disculpe.
This man in uniform, he treated everyone in a bad manner. It reminded me of the man that pulled over my father. I was 12 years old, and we had been pulled over because my father exceeded the speed limit. When the officers found out he didn't have a license, they took him out of the car and put him in handcuffs. They took us all out of the car. As soon as the officers touched my brothers, and they cried and yelled, my father screamed at the officers in Spanish. They just laughed and mocked him. My father got out of the hold of the officer and ran towards us to calm us down. But all the officer saw was another man running towards the officer. The officer immediately pulled out his taser gun and shot at him. My father died because of a heart attack triggered by the tase. What was left of my father family had been given a court date for entering the country legally, but we fled the state. This man himself, being Hispanic, how could he treat his own people this way? How could he treat any human being this way? It isn't right.
I think it's important to give students a voice through plays or poems because it doesn't have to be them. They don't have to actually say, oh, this happened to me. Like they can say it's fictional when it actually did happen, or they can say, oh no, I got this from imagination. And they say what they want to say without being accountable for saying it, and like people thinking, oh, so that's what you think, like judging them basically. Maybe one of the kids who put it in, it was like it really did happen to one of their parents, but they didn't have to say, they can just throw out the idea and say, oh, we can do this, without saying this is what happened to me. Being part of the project made me feel like I could give a voice to people who aren't able to say what they want to say. You got to demonstrate like things that normally isn't talked about in public or like displayed as a play. You know, people look at it and like and appreciate it more when it's like basically like a play instead of being talked as formally discussions, because most people are like, oh, here we go again with the racism issue or this and that.
The play was about how two girls were trying to cross the border, but they didn't have their passport. They have their IDs. So the officer requests the passport, and he thinks they're illegal because the birth certificate doesn't have the seal that is required. So he puts them in jail, and after 72 hours, they have been released because their status has been confirmed. It happened to me, so it was easy to give the details about what happened in that situation. I was detained by an officer because I brought my brother's clothes, and I didn't have my passport. I only had my ID, and he was very racist, and I was detained 72 hours. I was a U.S. citizen being treated like an illegal. I was with another illegals, and it was very harsh, like how we were treated.
If you guys are so innocent, then why are you guys starting to sweat?
Well, no, but how are we supposed to act when you're wrongly accusing us of something clearly far from the truth?
Are you talking back to a federal officer now? Nomás por eso quedan ustedes detenidas. Hand me your car keys.
Aren't you going to read us our rights?
You have no rights here.
We have the opportunity to demonstrate what has happened to us and to tell everyone like what is happening, just not just to adults but students too.
Anytime you put pen to paper, and that's an archaic term these days, but anytime you tweet or go on Facebook or write on your computer, anytime you do that, you're involved in expression, and you're involved in analysis, and you're involved in interpretation, because it takes that to create words, however you do it. And as soon as you do that, you're involved in introspection. You're involved in some self-awareness about your place in the world. And that's the most important thing. I mean, if the students decided to write a poem or a short play, or just write an essay, or write a letter to their late grandmother, whatever they decided to do, whatever they decide to do with their words, it's important that they participate in that process, because they're gaining something immediately from it. I mean, no one that I know of can sort of unconsciously, in the way that we breathe, create words. You have to be involved intelligently in that on some level.